Welcome to Why Such a Fuss, an exciting new channel dedicated to help individuals and businesses to learn more about data protection in a way that is easy and engaging. I'm Cristina from CVG Solutions, and I am a fully qualified data protection professional. I am passionate about educating, empowering, and enabling businesses to thrive. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel and help us to spread the word. Data protection is there for a reason. It protects you, your family, loved ones, customers, employees from coming to harm through the use of personal data. So make sure you click subscribe. Now, get ready to embark on a journey of growth and knowledge as we dive into the world of data protection. I am pleased to have with me today Sona Mehta, a senior law lecturer at the City St George's, which is part of the University of London. And Sona is also a qualified solicitor with over 20 years experience in data protection. Sona, welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, I'm really looking forward to our discussion because actually it's inspired by your presentation at the latest privacy space, where you talked about equality, diversity and inclusion, or EDI for short, data that organizations, both in the private and public sector, are under more and more pressure to collect this information from their employees, volunteers, for example, if they're charities, patients, customers, you name it, and to demonstrate their contribution or commitment to equality, diversity, and inclusion. And I think it's fair to say that these organizations are using this data when needed, also when required to defend themselves, potential claims or accusation from employees or other parties. But collecting and processing this data does not come without any challenges, I think. Would you agree with that, Sona?
100%.
Yes. And I think the first one that we ought to explore is the fact that this data can only be obtained voluntarily from the individual. And why is that?
Well, as you know, you need to have a lawful basis to collect the data. And really, going through those lawful bases, you've got the option of it being necessary for the performance of a contract with the data subject. And, do you really need the ethnicity of an employee or of an individual to contract with them, to have them as an employee? I really struggled to see why that lawful basis would apply. The other option is compliance with a legal obligation, and again, occasionally, depending on the seniority, you may need to report stats on how many senior individuals are of ethnic minorities or their backgrounds, but generally it doesn't apply to the vast majority of employees.
Yeah.
Vital interest is another option, but again, it's not a matter of life or death having this information, so that wouldn't qualify. Public interest or function, again, only in relation to the seniority, I think, of individuals, the really senior individuals. And legitimate interest, I think it would be a struggle to have rely on that legal basis. So that really only needs you with consent.
Yeah, because you're right. Legitimate interest is going to be very difficult for an organization to prove that their business interest supersedes the rights and freedom of the individual. So that I agree, that only leaves consent. And also because, this data actually falls under the special category type. And so then not only you have to have a lawful basis from Article 6, you have to have an exemption from Article 9, right?
Exactly. And there's the issue again, a lot of those lawful bases, principles or options would apply again. But, when you're talking about consent, you need explicit consent. So the individuals really need to know exactly what they're signing up to, what they're consenting to, and why their data is needed.
Yes.
And I think that is the biggest challenge, because really, as I said at privacy, the privacy talk, I'm of an ethnic minority, and I get a bit fun. I know my rights now as an individual, so I want to know what exactly an employer or anyone is going to do with my information, my ethnicity. What has that got to do with how I perform my contract?
It's very, these questions are really invasive, because it's not just about ethnicities, they're also sexual orientation, gender, religion, and you're thinking, why do you need to know all of that?
Exactly. Membership
to do my job.
Yes, yeah. And it really, I think that's the issue, isn't it? There's a bit of distrust, or the potential for distrust. I think it depends on the employer and what kind of relationship they have with their employees, but also how open and honest they are with their employees. Because
and also very often this kind of data is being requested at recruitment, part of the recruitment process. So as part of, your application, for a job, they want to collect this information. They don't actually say that it's voluntary. Especially if you do it online, those fields are not, with a red asterisk that indicates mandatory, filling in. But there's nothing in there that sort of says, the following information, it's voluntary.
Exactly. Or if it is, you're in that zone of, well, you just want to submit an application, you're answering all the questions. So it's I think it's a bit sly the way it's done.
Yes. And also because, again, in an employer-employee, or even, during the application of a job, you have the power imbalance where the applicants feel that they ought to give you as many information that that you want, so that you'll consider them for the job. So really, consent here, it's a bit, not really applicable, is it, either?
Exactly. I mean, you're giving, as you said, you're giving your qualifications. You're in that zone of providing as much information as you can to get the job. You're not quite vulnerable, but you're certainly not in the strong bargaining position that the employer is in.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And so actually, thinking of everything that they ask, that how does that align with the principle of minimization?
Well, good question. How does it align? It goes back to, the principle of minimization is all about only asking for the information that you need, only keeping that information. You shouldn't go above and beyond just in case you might want that information at another time.
Yeah.
So why do you need the special category data? Why do you need to know if I'm a member of a trade union when I sign up? Why do you need to know my religious background or my religious beliefs? Again, it goes back to, what has that got to do with anything? Minimization, why are you asking? And I think it all boils down to why is it that you want this information?
What is the necessity and what's the purpose for that data? Because I can understand, in terms of the equality, sort of thinking, okay, you want to demonstrate that you have, as part of your employee pool, a varied religion sort of mix, let's say. Or ethical mix, or gender, male, female kind of proportion. And also suppose, sexuality in terms of, lesbian, gays, transgender, straight people. But what about union? You know what I mean? That doesn't really...
I think it's an odd one to fit in there, isn't it? And category data, I think I can understand a lot of the other things, but political beliefs as well. Why is that there?
Yes, it's just, it's not relevant. I suppose, the criminal is because it could be relevant to the role. So you want to there is, yes, you have to check that. But yeah, so I think employers or recruiters, that when they are collecting this, they really need to think of, do I really need this? Do you know what I mean? What is the purpose? What am I going to do with it? How is that relevant to the role or to the organization? I think that, I suppose it's the message that we're saying.
Yes, but it's an interesting one because I recently attended something at the university where, it was a conference about promoting EDI within the university. And, we've all got very diverse backgrounds, but how do you monitor it? How do you utilize the statistics that you have? Or how do you get the statistics to be able to market the employer? And it's a catch-22 because you want to say you've got a diverse workforce, you've got, X% of minorities but if you can't gather the data, it's not accurate. And if you can't then market inaccurate data. So as an employer, what do you do?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a really difficult quandary. I know, I live in an area where a couple of the schools have a particular sway towards the ethnicity of children. But, in the school literature and prospectuses, they're obviously trying to balance it out. And it's the same sort of thing where, for the schools, they're able to photograph perhaps children of varied skin tone and, diversity, diverse backgrounds. And perhaps employers could do that in their promotional, customer facing literature. But it's not the same as having a percentage of X amount of people in our workforce are from minority backgrounds or are of, this faith or it's just not the same.
No, it's not. And the other thing I think as a challenge that organizations have is, the security aspect, because in terms of, as we said, this is special category data. And, the regulation goes as far as to say that the collection of this data is forbidden unless you have an exemption. So that just goes to show how precious, if you want, this data is and how it should really be looked after. So, what I see is that this data, when it's collected, is actually kept in the same file as the individual that sort of is related to. So to me, that it's not necessary, because you don't need to know that Sona is from a certain, ethnic background. You just need to know that you have one female person, say, for example, that it's from a specific ethnic background. So I think the data should be, divorced from the actual individual and therefore anonymized as much as possible, or even pseudonymized, because, if you only, at the end of the day, if you only have to demonstrate that you have a percentage number of ethnic minority or, transgenders or, do you know what I mean? And so on, you don't need the names associated with it. You just need the number. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. But, how do you get the number?
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Exactly. It's chicken and egg. Completely. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The ideal would be to anonymize the data, pseudonymize it, somehow utilize some resources to enable, as we said, to divorce the data subject, the individual, from their special category.
Yes.
That's an ideal world, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think, yes, you could password protect, you could have, various access rights and people not being able to access all the information.
Yes.
That might be okay. I mean, that's better than nothing.
Yes.
But I think it's still doesn't address the issue of why is this information being gathered in the first place.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I suppose, okay, I don't expect to be, I'm not pretending to be, sort of an employment lawyers I know obviously a bit of employment law because, I've been a manager in the past, with a team. So, you get to know some of the stuff. But, from my understanding is that organization have some kind of obligations to demonstrate that they are, committed and, to diversity and so on. And so I suppose that's the why to a degree, but it's not necessarily a strong why in that sense.
Yes. I mean, yeah, you're right. That's the why, particularly public sector bodies. And I think, the larger the organisation, the more reporting is required. But I think, as I said, there's an element of distrust and concern, I think, from data subjects, individuals, employees, as to, well, could that information be used against them somehow?
Yes.
And I think, it was interesting. I received someone had said to me, do you really need to get that ethnicity? Do you really need that special category data? Or could you not just have qualitative data? Could you not just have staff feedback to satisfy the, yes, we work in a wonderfully diverse environment. Could you use that sort of feedback rather than using statistics and numbers? And it was an interesting point because, yes, of course, in an ideal world, that would be the perfect way to do it. But certainly we are finding at the university that there's an element of survey fatigue, we call it. People don't like completing forms.
No, in general, they don't.
They get very stuck. And so if you have a big free text box, how often is that going to be completed?
Yes, that's it's another way of looking at it. Yes. But, I suppose the message that I want to, give to my listeners is that if you are collecting this data and you're having to collect this data, divorce it from the individual, the data subject that it's related to, as much as you possibly can, as part of your security measures. Obviously, password protected, I have everything else encrypted, make sure that only the individuals that, need to access it. So, make sure your access control is tight. But, really think about what is the purpose, why are you collecting it? What are you going to do with it? Who you're going to share it with? Does it go outside of the organization? And so on. And also, minimization, going back to what we were talking earlier, only, do you need to collect, to know if they're part of a union? Do you need their political views? If you're just trying to sort of establish if you have a good balance between, say, genders, female, male, then just collect that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you want to demonstrate that you have, ethnicity, a good mixture of ethnic diversity, then just collect that. Don't go beyond what you don't need. Would you say that's fair, Sona?
Absolutely. Yeah. Not much more I can add to it because you shouldn't be asking for more than you need, but then query what exactly do you need.
Yes.
And make sure, you're clear as to why you need it.
Yes.
And are there any other ways of obtaining that information?
Yes. And also, if you're not anonymizing the data, and again, anonymization is not as easy as you think, but that's a subject for another day.
Yeah, exactly.
But, if you're not anonymizing the data, then also make sure that you have a retention policy so that you don't keep it for longer than necessary. So, I would say as a rule of thumb, so to speak, no more than 6 years. So just make sure that you have that, because again, that's part of the retention principle, but also will aid your security as well. Now, do you know if the ICO provide any guidance on collecting this data?
Yeah, I was having a look and I couldn't really see much guidance at all. I'm looking at you here because I don't know if you've had the same stumbling block.
No, I haven't
It's
come
very
across.
generic in terms of it falls within special category data, and you have to treat special category data with additional precautions. But that's all I found.
Yes. No, I'm the same. I thought maybe, because you might have, other access to other tools, but I've not come across anything particular. No. No.
And I think the government bodies, the public sector bodies, seem to have a bit more guidance, and they're a bit more, perhaps a bit more cautious when it comes to the collection of special category data. Or it could be, I was looking at cases, and there seemed to be more, or quite a few cases or reprimands or notices relating to public sector entities, but that could be related to the Freedom of Information Act as well.
Yes.
But not much for the private sector at all.
No.
And then I think you could perhaps go to ACAS or look at the employment side of things to find any further guidance.
Yes.
But there's not much from the ICO.
No, which is a shame. Never mind. So your final thoughts on the subject, Sona?
Final thoughts are, as I said, it's a nice to have, I think, the collection of data, but I think the collection of special category data. But I think the danger is very much, it's a bit like when we're talking to marketeers, where the marketing people want as much data as they can, just in case they can, utilize it for another day, another marketing campaign. And I think the danger with collecting ethnicity or diversity or inclusion data could fall within the same kind of ambit, that is the desire to collect that information just so that it could be utilised, at a later date. But then I think going back to your principles, the issue is also, well, how accurate is the data? What about data accuracy? Because people do change their religion, they do change their sexuality. It happens. Yes. So are you keeping that information up to date? And how? It's again going back to, well, how would you feel as an employee if every year you were asked to kind of verify your sexuality or your religious beliefs? Certainly I'd find it quite intrusive, and that would make me question what is being done with this data. So I think it again, there are all sorts of areas that you do need to be careful about. And I'm sorry, you said final thoughts and I'm rambling. No, but I think that there are just so many issues.
I think I forgot about the accuracy, but you're absolutely right. How do you maintain that data without, making your employees, feel, that their privacy has been invaded, and you've got to put yourself into their shoes as well. And I think it's correct. You've nailed it on the head. So I think it's a very interesting subject.
We could carry on for ages, couldn't we?
Oh gosh, yes. So I suppose the moral of the story is, if you are in doubt, give Sona or me a call and we'll help you.
Absolutely. But I think rule of thumb is very much, make sure you are collecting this data, this information for the right purposes, and you have got explicit consent of the individuals.
Yes, to do absolutely. Yeah. With that in mind, Sona, how can my audience get in touch with you should they wish to do so?
Well, I think the best way is probably LinkedIn. I am at City St George's, as you said, but I am also on LinkedIn. So the best way is probably just drop me a message on LinkedIn and reach out to me.
Fantastic, fantastic. And if any of you would like to get in touch with me, you can reach me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for CVG Solutions, or alternatively, just email me at info@cvgsolutions.co.uk. Thank you for listening.